Hi, my name is Sarah, and I make videos about sewing and styling a handmade wardrobe. In the past year and a half, I've really refocused my sewing practice to be more about longevity. With the current times that we're living in and the fact that sewing is already an expensive hobby, I want to maximize my return on my investment for both money and time to really get a full life out of each item of clothing that I sew. I'm going to share the changes that I've made to my sewing practice with you so that hopefully we can all have a closet full of clothes that we'll be wearing for years. Now, a quick note before we get started, I do want to say something to my beginners out there. These tips don't necessarily apply to beginners. When you're new to sewing, you are going to make some mistakes. You are going to end up with things that are unwearable. That's just the nature of learning a new skill. It's not a bug, it's a feature. It's part of the learning process. So if you're new, maybe bookmark this video and come back when you feel a little bit more confident in your sewing abilities. And then you can really focus in on these tips to get a long-lasting wardrobe. My first, most basic tip is to assess what you already have. You have a wealth of information available to you with clothes you already own in two different ways. First, you have the items that you love and wear on a regular basis, and you probably have some items that just feel a little bit off in some way. So take some time to examine both of those categories and get behind the why. Why is it that you constantly reach for that same t-shirt as soon as you pull it out of the wash? Why don't you ever wear that blouse that looks so beautiful hanging up, but you just skip past it every single time? Does it have to do with the fit, the fabric, or the style of the garment? It's a good idea to write down these observations about your clothes that you love and the clothes that you don't like, so that you can start to see patterns, and then you can have a good foundation for things that you really, really like and that you gravitate towards, and also some things that you should avoid. So to give you an example of two dresses from my own wardrobe, the first one that I absolutely love is this Style Arc Hope dress. I made it out of a cotton poplin that is a nice weight. It's not too heavy and stiff, but it's also not too light and sheer. It's just perfect. And I love wearing it in the summertime because it's a loose dress. It doesn't touch my body. It basically feels like I'm wearing nothing. And it's just so incredibly comfortable. I also feel like the high contrast black and white print really suits me. And then I'm going to contrast that with a dress that I no longer own. It's the Sew Over It vintage shirt dress. I made this several years ago and I used a fabric that I thought was really cute, but it wasn't really my style, and it was in a color that really did not suit me. There were just so many things about this dress that I didn't love. I don't like knee-length dresses on me, and the color was off and the print wasn't right, so I did end up rehoming that dress. And now I know better, and I'm not going to make that same mistake again. My second tip is to really delve into your personal style. Going back to point number one, think about the clothes that you love and your favorite combinations. Try to narrow down what colors, patterns, and silhouettes really work for you. It's totally okay to experiment with new things. In my opinion, that's how you stay fresh and modern with your style. But try to do it slowly over a period of time, maybe just one garment at a time, rather than trying to revamp your whole wardrobe all at once. By going slowly, you'll minimize your mistakes, and you'll end up with more garments that are successful that you'll want to keep around for longer. Know that personal style is an ever-changing and growing thing, but knowing your core elements will help keep you on the right track. So some core elements of my own personal style are things like stripes. I have always loved stripes. I will always love wearing stripes, especially in knits. I've also recently discovered that I really love cropped layers. I think that they suit me really well. And red is my favorite color, and I have always loved pairing it with denim, whether that's a light wash, a mid wash, or dark wash. I just think it looks amazing with all three of those, plus black. So I know that it's a combination that I can rely on again and again and get different looks by pairing different pieces together in those colors. Now, number three is one that I have talked about in the past, but it's worth mentioning again, and that is to resist getting swept up in the trends. And by that, I mean both the overarching fashion trends that are all around us, and also in particular the sewing trends that the sewing community really falls in love with. And keep in mind that those things can be different. Have you ever seen everyone making a pattern on Instagram or on other social media, and you just feel like you have to make it too, only after you end up sewing it, it just doesn't work for you, and you can't quite figure out why you don't look as great as everyone else? I have fallen into that trap myself so many times. So I'm not saying that you can't make trends or take part in the fun that everyone else is doing, but maybe stop and think about it and take a little bit more time. Really reflect on whether this pattern or this fabric is something that works for your lifestyle, that will fit in with the things that you already have in your closet, and if you're making it because you really love it, or whether you're just doing it in order to participate in the trend. Is this item of clothing something that you would actually wear, and not just something that looks great on other people? Now, a secondary part of this mistake is about sewing challenges. I hardly ever do collabs or participate in sewing challenges anymore, not because I don't think that they're amazing and I do like being part of the community and I do miss a little bit of that, but I just found that too many of the things that I made for a challenge or a collab ended up being something that I didn't really wear. So one example I picked out, although I have so many of these that I could point to as well, is the pencil skirt that I made for the Sew Frugal Challenge back in 2023. I made the Patterns for Pirates pencil skirt. I made it out of some leftover fabric. I made it in a basic black, so I thought that it would be something that would be a basic that I would wear all the time, and I don't think I ever wore it, not even once. I just don't like knee-length skirts, and I don't like pencil skirts, so I don't know why I decided to do, well, actually I do know why I made that. I made it because I didn't have a lot of time, and it was something that I could quickly make in order to enter the challenge. But I really should have just taken a step back and been like, you know what, I don't have time to participate this year. I'll do it next year when I have more time. Rather than just trying to squeeze in something so that I could be part of the challenge and then ending up with a garment that just doesn't work for me. My fourth tip is to go ahead and restyle pieces that you already own. I have a whole series on Instagram called Restyle Me Made Fridays, where I take old clothes that have been in my closet for a while and I try to style them in new ways. You can get a lot more longevity out of your pieces if you're creative and come up with different ways to style them. I find that if I rewear things in the same outfits too much, I get tired of them and I stop wearing them. So pulling out a piece I haven't worn in a while and coming up with some new combinations helps me to keep it in my closet for longer. This year, I'm also doing a year-long challenge where every month I have a different personal styling challenge that I try to do, and it just keeps it really fun for me. It keeps it creative. I come up with new ideas to wear my clothes, and I think that it's really important to do that. In the month of April, my challenge is that I have chosen several pieces from my wardrobe that I've worn less than 10 times. This pearl cardigan is one of them, and I'm just trying to challenge myself to wear those things more throughout the month. So by coming up with new ways to style those old pieces, you will definitely get a lot more use out of them, and it'll be less likely that you'll pass them on because you're tired of them. So before we go any further, I do just want to mention, because I'm all about transparency here, that I am not perfect. If you don't know, I keep track of every article of clothing that I own on a spreadsheet, and I also track how much I wear things. So I can tell you from the data that I've collected that only 32% of my wardrobe is from 5 years ago or older. Now, I am kind of disappointed in myself that the total is that low. However, I'm giving myself some leeway because, on the one hand, things like knits, like t-shirts that I wear a lot, those kinds of garments are not going to last in my wardrobe for 5 years. In my experience, knits just don't last as long as wovens. So I'm sure that accounts for part of that total. And also, I have learned a lot in the past few years, more than what I knew when I came back to sewing in 2020. So I would expect in the next 5 years that that percentage is going to be much higher because I'm making better decisions now. At least I hope that's going to be the case. And before we get to the next tip, I just want to put in a plug for my new video series. I started an Ask Me Anything thread on my community tab, so feel free to ask questions there. I'll try to put a link in a pinned comment to this video so you can easily find it. I'm hoping to film a bonus video every couple weeks, maybe a few times a month, where I answer 1 or 2 of the questions that I get in that thread. You can ask me anything about style, sewing, or knitting, or my personal life, and I will try to answer your questions fairly briefly in those videos. So like I said, I will pin that thread in a comment below this video, and you can go ask your questions there, and thank you so much for your support. Tip number 5 is to just slow down. I could have minimized so many mistakes that I've made just by taking my time, both with the decision-making process, which we have already touched on in the previous tips, but especially when I actually sew the garment. When I first started sewing in my mid-20s, I was all about making the going out top. So I'd go to Joann, pick up fabric in a pattern, come home, cut it out and sew it. I wouldn't even pre-wash my fabric. And I just had to finish my top before I went out that night. And a lot of times I would never end up wearing that top again because it wasn't well constructed. Most of the time, there is no real reason to rush through making a garment. When we do, it's often about our own excitement and impatience and just wanting something new to wear. But if you slow down and take your time, you'll end up with something that's going to last so much longer. After all, is it better to take one day and sew a top that's going to fall apart in 6 months, or to take a week and have a garment that's going to last you for many years? Even if you're in a scenario where you have a lifestyle change like a new job, or maybe you've changed size and you really do need to replace a lot of items in your wardrobe, in my opinion, it's still better to add high quality items at a slower rate than it is to churn out a bunch of things that aren't well made that aren't going to last. Now, I really dug in the archive for you guys, and I found these tops from 2006 that I made, and they are not made well. They don't fit me well. I think some of them aren't even hemmed, and I obviously don't still have them. And maybe at that point in my life, that was okay because I was much newer to sewing. I was still learning, and so I probably couldn't have produced something really well made even if I had wanted to. But certainly now I have no excuse. And I just finished a jean jacket that I'm hoping to share with you next week, and that took me an entire month to sew. But I know that it's going to be worth it, and I'm actually really excited to share that with you, so I do hope you'll come back and watch that video. My next tip is to make clothing that fits. The beauty of sewing our own clothes is that we can actually make them fit our individual bodies. We're not beholden to whatever size is available off the rack. So if you make a pattern right out of the packet and it doesn't fit you very well, the chances are you're not going to hold on to it for that long. I know as well as anyone that fitting can be really tricky to master, and I'm still working on it. But no one's saying that you have to get an absolutely perfect fit every single time. Even if you just make a few simple adjustments, it can be better than not making any at all. You can definitely learn as you go, and certainly slowing down and making a muslin first can be a big help. Now, I'm not saying I do that every single time, but I do try to do it more than I used to, especially when I'm making a new pattern. So an example here that actually makes me kind of sad is this dress that I no longer have in my wardrobe. It's Simplicity 8875, and this dress is so beautiful, and I loved it. I just think that it's really feminine, but it's not over the top. I really love the style of it. But when I made it, I didn't take the time to do a small bust adjustment, and it has under bust gathers. And in my opinion, when you don't fill out those bust cups, it just looks like you have sad, deflated balloons, and that is just not a good look. And so even though I loved the dress, every time I wore it, I just felt so self-conscious about my chest that it made me feel uncomfortable. So I did eventually pass that dress on, and someday I would love to remake that dress and do the adjustment where it actually fits me, because I just think that if I had done that in the first place, I would have felt like $1,000,000. But because I didn't do it, I felt really self-conscious. I didn't feel like I was at my best. So it's really a shame and kind of a waste that I didn't take the time to do the fitting and make the dress work for me. My seventh tip is to be selective with your pattern and fabric choices. Buy the best quality fabric that you can afford and avoid the uncomfortable fabrics, things that are itchy, things that might be too fussy, and choose prints and colors that you love and will actually wear. I used to be much more adventurous with my color and print choices until I realized that a lot of the colors that I was choosing to branch out just didn't suit me, and I never ended up wearing those things. On the pattern front, I admit that it is a lifelong struggle. I have so many patterns and so many that I'm never even going to use. I used to never repeat patterns just because there were so many different ones to try. But I've really learned over time that every time you repeat a pattern, it's an opportunity to refine the fit and get it to be even better than your previous version. And you can also change up small style elements in order to make your garments look different. So even though I used to think that it was super boring to just use the same patterns over and over, I'm really starting to appreciate the appeal. Now, an example of a pattern that I made a few years ago where I really wasn't being selective enough is the Itch to Stitch Mountain View pull-on jeans. This is also a really good example of following a sewing trend because everyone at the time was making those jeans and I just wanted to try them too. And I didn't stop to think that I don't like pull-on jeans. And they also have a seam on the back leg, and so I actually found them very uncomfortable to wear. I found my pants quite restrictive around the midsection, and then that seam was always rubbing on the back of my leg, and I just didn't like it. And so even though I think that the jeans looked nice and they fit well, I didn't keep them because they were not comfortable. So if I had made a better pattern selection, I'd probably still have those jeans in my wardrobe today because they're like a nice classic straight leg style and a dark wash. I really liked the look of them, but I wasn't selective enough in my pattern choice, and so I ended up making a mistake. Now, number 8 is something that I never used to do, and that is to alter or repair your existing garments. I know, it's not exciting, and I don't really like doing it either. But you can really add years onto the life of a garment if you just take a few moments to make some small or sometimes big alterations to improve something that you already have. So one thing that I've been doing a lot lately for my woven tops and jackets, just taking a few minutes to top stitch down the back facings because it drives me absolutely crazy when they flip up. And in the front, I get that like sometimes you don't always want to see the stitching line, so I won't do it in the front. And the front is easy enough to tuck in as well because it's right in front of you. But when the back neck facing is popping up, it can be really annoying to try to like stuff it back down. And it's in the back. And so if you have a stitching line on the back of your neck, no one's really going to see it. And just doing that one small change, it probably takes me about a minute to actually sew. It makes my garments so much more comfortable and wearable. I have saved so many garments from the donation pile just by making those small little changes that make it so much more wearable. So even though it's not fun, I highly encourage you to do it too, because you'll get more life out of the things that you've already made instead of them just sitting there in your closet, or you're eventually just getting rid of them. And my 9th tip is something that I assume that all of us already do because we make our own clothes, but it doesn't hurt to go over it again, and that is to take care of your clothes. Just sewing up a new garment is not the end of the process if you want clothes that last. Properly wash your items when they need to be washed, try to treat stains right away before they set in, make repairs if you need to, use a sweater shaver or a comb on your knits, and iron or steam your clothing. Now here is one where I could probably stand to take my own advice because I absolutely hate ironing and steaming, but it really does help make your clothes look nicer, and it'll help keep your clothes looking fresher for longer, and that'll actually make you want to wear them more. So I really hope that at least 1 or 2 of these tips are something that you could incorporate into your own life in order to have a wardrobe that you'll keep on wearing far into the future. Thank you so much for watching this video, and I will see you in the next one.